What up, YouTube? This will be the 30th edition of Analyzing My Friends' Games, and let's jump right in. Here we have David playing black, plays the Philidor. So we got David playing all sorts of openings. Normal, knight c6 on move 2, knight f6 on move 2 against me. Not to mention non-double king pawns openings, and again my recommendation would be to just play the same opening over and over again, at least for 2, 3, 4 months at a time, just to really memorize it. I pretty much play the same stuff all the time. I've mixed it up over the years, especially against d4. But when I try something new, I stick with it for at least a few months or at least a year, just to get a taste for it. And only rarely do I even mix it up nowadays. If I break 2100, 2200, then I'll start trying out different things to not be too predictable. But for right now, I just want to get really good at what I already play. So anyway, d6 is not so bad. Recently played by Leela Zero, the engine, the bot, at f6, which at some point will be probably stronger than Stockfish, but definitely not yet. At f6, d4, and here bishop g4. This is a bit inaccurate. White can take, and you could probably see where this is going. If black takes back, white trades the queens and takes on e5, hitting the bishop, and white has an extra pawn, and black can't castle, so that's obviously bad. If white wants to, if black doesn't want to be a pawn down, he has to take here. Oh, excuse me. Now he has to take here. And after white takes back, now he's not a pawn down, but still he can't castle, and white has the two bishops, so white's clearly better. But black did not, white did not play d takes e, he played h3. And here actually, h3 is not the greatest move, kind of a cute tactic, or a mini tactic you could say here is e takes d4. And if you're taking the bishop, I'm taking your knight. And yeah, white's pawns are pretty wrecked. White can try to make a gambit of it, I suppose, like this. And if black takes that pawn, that would be good. But black can just ignore it and develop. And not to mention both these pawns are hit. So this would be good for black. And oops, spoiler alert. So again, we're here after instead of bishop h5 as played, e takes d would have been interesting. Again, we looked at pawn takes bishop, pawn takes knight, and if queen takes, we can gain time, a tempo on the queen. After the queen moves, then we can drop back the bishop. Engine says here, probably h5 is fine too. So just a cute little tactic to gain some time. But instead, David drops the bishop back, and now, again, white could play this way, similar to the game. Pretty much, similar to the other variation. It's pretty much exactly the same, except h3 is inserted, which really doesn't make too much difference. But maybe it favors white a little bit because this pawn is unassailable by black's remaining bishop. So instead, David goes to h5, and white does not do this. He just keeps developing. David keeps developing. And engines, yeah, it's recommending different things. But plays queen d2. Looks like he's getting ready to castle queenside. After David castles kingside, that would have been much more dynamic. But instead he wimps out castles kingside. Bishop g6. It's not really pinning the knight to the queen anymore. And now it at least adds pressure here. So there's a threat right now. Take twice. White defends. And Here David plays c5. c6 is recommended by Stockfish. It's hard to see positionally why this move is better, but it does cover these important squares, and it stays flexible. Black can play c5 in the future. He can also maybe play d5. It's kind of like the Pirk, actually, except you've already achieved the e5 break on move 1. But c5 does leave a hole here. Well, let's look at the game. After c5, white takes, black takes back, and yeah, here Engine just recommends bring a rook to the d file, and the f rook. And yeah, this bishop's future is not looking so good. This bishop is also, it's okay defensively, but it's not really attacking too much, and white has more space for his pieces, so it would be slightly better for white. Instead, white goes astray with knight to h4. This gives David a chance to play a tactic, common tactic when the bishop and queen, or even just the queen, are lined up on a knight on the rim that comes to attack a bishop over here, is bringing knight to take the e-pawn, uncovering. In this case, it works well because it's attacking the queen. So for instance here, it takes the queen, and after one piece or another, let's say the bishop takes back, we can just take this guy. And yeah, we've won a central pawn. Still, Engine gives white the advantage somehow, but a black's double pawn. But instead after knight to h4, David also goes to the room with knight h5, and this is kind of the start of bad things. Instead of winning the central pawn, we're putting our knight on the rim. So black takes, and white again, excuse me, the table just dropped. Too much weight on it, and the cat. It's supposed to be able to take 22 pounds. Well, I guess between the cat, the computer, and my elbows, it was more than 22 pounds. So again, I'm not sure why David took towards the center. He's been promising me to give me notes in the future, so hopefully that will happen. So yeah, I don't know why he took towards, away from the center. And now you can see one of the disadvantages of c5. Although, in retrospect, I think the main disadvantage, assuming black didn't do all this weird stuff, like moving the knight out of the way here, was that, yeah, this bishop is bad. So, yeah, here David blunders a pawn with knight to f4, and here white can just take on the square a bunch of times and be up a pawn. Will be another pawn, not just one pawn, but with a great position. With yeah, so knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and yeah, white has the two bishops and an extra pawn. Black's king very exposed, or somewhat exposed. So knight f4 was a mistake. Better for David would have been knight b6. Just challenging this guy in a better way that's not losing a pawn in this important central pawn. And if white takes, black takes, okay, white has the two bishops versus two knights, but at least our pieces are getting a little bit more coordinated. We can bring a rook to the d file, make his queen move away, pin this bishop, and this knight is not all that good. But our bishop on e7 wasn't the best piece anyway, locked in by the pawn, so the game goes on. So again, knight b6 would have been better than this knight to f4, but this is what happens. Check. And yeah, white is not playing it in the best way. And David didn't take here. I can actually see why he didn't take, because he was nervous about this, I think. And it looks like the knight is trapped. Engine saying there's some tactic here. What about this? Takes. Okay. Tactics, tactics, tactics. If here... Ah, this bishop. Okay, so that's pretty hard to see in a blitz game. Let's try to look at that. So after g3, we can take here with check. King comes to g2. The knight has no squares, seemingly. But then we come back to f4 with check, because remember the king's here. If pawn takes, hitting the bishop, bishop takes. And then finally, queen to e4 check, hitting the king, which is now here, and the bishop here, and we're getting our piece back. So, again, another reason not to play too much blitz. You're not really going to have time to calculate this. And even if you get lucky and see it over the board, it's not really good for your visualization. It might be kind of maybe good for your intuition, maybe. But yeah, so let's look at that again. It's a cool tactic. Takes, comes back, pawn takes. I mean, there's other variations, but of course if bishop takes, then you don't really have to worry about that too much. White's not winning a piece. So pawn takes, white goes for the extra piece, e takes, bishop takes, check. And if king comes to protect this bishop, we can take this bishop. Now the king's exposed. If white goes hunting down this knight, we can take this with check. All of a sudden, black's doing really well. But instead, David comes to g5 with his queen, pinning his own knight, and I'm not sure why he would choose this square. Maybe he wants to take with a knight and then slide over here to protect the knight once he's taken it. And, oh yeah, not to mention it hangs this knight, and once this knight hangs, the queen protects this pawn. And if harassed by the rook, the queen can bump back here. So this was a blunder in time pressure, I assume. You could say that a whole blitz game is time pressure. So yeah, it's just like activating the panic mode in your brain, and it's fun if you win. And maybe you can say, oh, it's only blitz if you lose, but better to play real chess if you are an improving player. I'm not saying never play blitz. Play a few blitz games a day just for fun and analyze them, but definitely play slow chess. White does not see this knight hanging, evidently, and he comes forward to protect the h-pawn. Knight b6. Maybe rook a d8, protecting that way. Not sure. I mean, black is attacking on the queen side. Maybe this knight wants to come over here and here. But hey, it's fun to attack a loose piece. Knight b6. And here, David's opponent, Sidali, takes the knight. Pawn takes. And trying to understand what's happening here. Yeah, already he's in some trouble because he has two bishops hit at the same time. He can do this. Queen takes. Yeah, and black's doing well again. Instead he attacks the queen, which is even worse, because David's taken his bishop, he's taken the queen, David's taken the queen. And all of a sudden black is doing great. This pawn is a beast. Oops, nothing to do with that square. Takes the queen, bishop is still hit. This pawn is hit with check. Now some strange moves played. I don't know why not this. It's just looks really good. Now I'll bring the other rook over. And this is really nice. This knight is actually a good piece. The rook can't move out of its protection, and he can't move here to attack this pawn. So this would be really good. Maybe if rook here, we could take the bishop, bring the other rook here, bring the other rook here. We do have to be a little careful in the back rank. Anyway, instead David preemptively protects the pawn, but I don't see why not take this pawn with check. Bishop d5. I guess trying to block up the file. And again, take this pawn with check, man. He goes off on a rook hunt. Again, take the f-pawn with check, and he does. Rook d f8 is the move. The king is almost in some kind of mating net. And another nice thing about coming here is that after we check again, assuming e5 isn't played, the king comes forward and play h5, perhaps get luft with tempo. So we're solving any back rank problems. Although the rook over here isn't directly touching the back rank at the moment. Instead, yeah, this is not a good move. We can take over the whole file with tempo. Not to mention, we're also threatening to come up here, trade rooks, and then just queen. And neither this bishop or rook, except opposite of the order I set them in, neither of these pieces are controlling this square. So this would just be lights out for white. Rook e2. Yeah, this is just not so good. We're putting it on a square where now it can be attacked by the bishop with tempo. I suppose, well, he wants to come in here to trade rooks. So I don't want to give him too hard a time, but the problem is the rook can come here. And then if it was black's move, bang. But it's white's move, rook here, and then rook here, and then takes the pawn. Actually, that's what happens. Rook over, and again, engine recommends rook f8. Stop the king from coming in and touching the rook, and still protecting this pawn. Instead, he just gives up this pawn, and yeah, I'm not sure. He feels like he can take this because the bishop takes, rook takes. Who thinks this is really bad? Oh, well, yeah, because black is losing all his queenside pawns. So, yeah, that would have been good. Better would be to play b6. And b6 also gives a nice place to go. Yeah, I mean, white could try to trap this knight, but I don't see how it's happening. If the b pawn moves, this square is open. So, yeah, b6 would have been a nice tidy move. White still has an edge here, but after this, and now takes. This rook can't be taken without getting back rank mated. So David goes in like this. But now it's 3-1 on the queen side with a better minor piece. And it's the losing move like that. But 96, and then the knight's pinned. And that's pretty much game over, although it did go on another 10 moves. So let's see, what can we learn from this game? We can learn something about the opening, these little opening tricks for white, and also c6 would have been better than c5. It's more flexible. It gives this bishop more options as this knight maybe traded or won. And then at this point, always remember these tricks with discoveries. Would have been much better. This move, taking with the f pawn, was not optimal. Giving up a pawn was not optimal. Maybe 6 better. And then here, yeah, here really tricky to see all the tactics involving knight takes pawn. Again, let's look at it again. Knight takes pawn, king g2, knight back to f5 check, pawn takes, bishop takes, and queen takes check, winning the bishop over here. So yeah, play slower games, do a ton of tactics, and yeah, you can, I mean, the whole point of tactics is it's a lot of energy to find them, but once you find them and get a nice winning position, you're saving yourself a lot of maneuvering later. And when you're playing multiple games in one day, or if you're playing a bunch of games online, saving energy is of key importance. Plus tactics are super fun. So yeah, after this happens, actually no, David got a, oh yeah, David got another advantage here. And here just it's white's move. Take here. If white comes up here, he's really in trouble. If he goes back, still we can dominate him. Maybe take this bishop, maybe double up, make sure we have lift. And yeah, we maybe queen this pawn, we may not, but either way, white's king is terribly exposed. So hope you enjoyed this video. I think this is my longest yet, over 20 minutes. So let me know what you thought of it in the comments. Like it, subscribe. Thanks a lot.